Today, we're going to unpack a Christmas story that, believe it or not, starts with the usual milk and cookies, but ends with a really modern, urgent message about our planet. And the person delivering it, well, it's none other than the big guy himself. Let's get right into it. So the whole thing kicks off with this simple and honestly super relatable admission. It's this deep down belief in the magic of Santa that really opens the door for the entire story. It sets a really warm, personal tone from the get-go. But don't get too comfortable, because this isn't just some cozy, nostalgic tale. A pretty common Christmas Eve mistake ends up revealing a problem that is way, way bigger than just getting a lump of coal. It basically rewrites the rules for what gets you on the naughty list these days. Okay, so let's dive into the incident itself. It all starts with a classic, almost funny Christmas Eve mistake, one that anyone who's ever had a fireplace can probably imagine happening. Here's what happened. Our storyteller forgot to open the chimney flue, so Santa, or Big Red as they call him, was, not happy. He left the classic punishment, a lump of coal. Seems pretty straightforward, right? Simple cause and effect. But it's not quite that simple. And this is where the whole situation just escalates. So forgetting the flue leads to getting the coal. But instead of just seeing it as a punishment, our narrator gets a little resourceful and uses the coal to roast some chestnuts. You think that's a pretty harmless act, right? Nope. That made Santa even angrier, and the reason why is really the whole twist of this story. This right here is the major pivot point. It turns out the narrator had completely misunderstood why Santa was so ticked off. It had nothing to do with the blocked chimney, and it wasn't even about roasting the chestnuts. So, you have to ask, right? If it wasn't the flue and it wasn't the chestnuts, what in the world was really bothering Santa Claus so much that he'd actually scold a lifelong, dedicated believer? And there it is, the big reveal. Santa wasn't mad about some personal mistake. He was absolutely terrified about a much bigger threat. Burning that lump of coal to him represented the whole problem of global warming that's literally melting his home at the North Pole. And Santa really lays it all out, He talks about how the ice is melting and how it ain't coming back. He paints this really vivid, honestly heartbreaking picture of himself and the polar bears just swimming around in the ocean trying to find a new piece of ice to call home. He even says the South Pole is just a temporary fix at best, which really shows you just how big this crisis is. So this all brings us to the real takeaway of the story. The naughty list has gotten a serious update. Old school concerns like forgetting the cookies or the flue, they seem so small now compared to the new #1 issue. Being naughty in this day and age has consequences for the entire planet. Okay, so after getting this absolutely shocking reality check from Santa himself, the narrator doesn't just sit there feeling guilty. They move to action. And that brings us to the story's resolution, a totally new kind of Christmas promise. The narrator makes a direct promise to Santa to turn over a new leaf and make a real commitment to clean, renewable energy. It's a direct answer to Santa's fears, and it's basically the moral of the story all wrapped up in one simple, powerful pledge. But the story doesn't just end with a perfectly wrapped gift, all neat and tidy. The thing is, since that day, Santa hasn't stopped by the narrator's house at all. No presents, not even a lump of coal. But even with the silence, the narrator's promise and their belief are still going strong. They're still holding out hope that maybe, just maybe, next year will be different. So why is this little story so powerful? I mean, it's a fantastic example of how to communicate a really big, complicated idea in a simple, unforgettable way. It's something you're seeing more and more in environmental storytelling. This fable just works so well for a few key reasons. First, it uses Santa Claus. I mean, who doesn't know Santa? To immediately grab your attention. Then it takes this massive, complex issue of climate change and reframes it into something deeply personal. Santa is about to lose his home. That just hits different, doesn't it? It cuts through all the data and charts and makes an abstract threat feel real and emotional. And finally, it gives us a clear moral. What you do as an individual really does matter. And that really leaves us with one last question to think about. This story took an old, beloved myth and adapted it for a very modern crisis. And it makes you wonder, right? What other urgent messages might be hiding in our oldest stories, just waiting for us to listen in a whole new way?